33 out of the next 48 at home. We've got to be real optimistic about that. And hopefully we can make some hay and put some distance between Montreal.
Well, the Mets are going to begin enjoying the benefits of that 10th man with another good crowd expected tonight, and they'll have that a whole lot during the month of June. And we'll be back with the first game of this long homestand after this word from Michelob Light.
Is at first base. Second baseman is Wally Backman. At shortstop, Rafael Santana. Playing third base, Ray Knight. Out of left field, George Foster. In center field, Len Dykstra. And in right field, Danny Heap. The catcher, Gary Carter. And on the mound, Ron Darling. Ron with a record of 5-0, an earned run average of 3.81. Ron has walked 24, struck out 30, and given up 41 base hits, and working a total of 49 2/3 innings. Ron Darling with a record of 1-0 against the Dodgers.
And here's the Dodger lineup. Steve Sax, the second baseman, batting first, and Ken Landreau batting second. Got a little ahead of myself. Bill Madlock, the third baseman, hitting third. And Mike Marshall, the right fielder, will hit fourth. Mike Scioscia behind the plate tonight. Greg Brock, Franklin Stubbs, Mariano Duncan, the shortstop, hitting eighth. And Bob Welch, the pitcher, batting ninth.
So Ron Darling going against the Dodgers for the first time this year. He has a record of 1-0 lifetime against the Dodgers. And the umpires for the game tonight, Frank Pulley behind home plate, Joe West at first base, Billy Williams the umpire at second base, and Steve Ripley the umpire at third. And Tom Lasorda, the manager of the Dodgers, their leader, who said if he would cut his wrist that he would bleed Dodger blue. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the New York Mets and WOR-TV. Hi, Tom. Come on over. And is intended solely for the private, non-commercial use of our audience. Any publication, reproduction, retransmission, or other use of the pictures, descriptions, and accounts of this game without the express written consent of the New York Mets and WOR-TV is prohibited. So the leadoff batter, Steve Sax, hitting at .329. He has 3 home runs, 14 runs batted in, and his 3 home runs coming in 25 at-bats against the Chicago Cubs this year at Wrigley Field. And Ron Darling starts off with a fastball. It was reported to us that Steve Sax and Greg Brock got into a scuffle on the bench just prior to the singing of our national anthem. We don't know if that's actually a true situation, but they both appear to be all right. That happens quite often on ball clubs.
We understand that some of their teammates separated them. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often.
I am, too, especially with a fellow like Steve up with the Toronto Blue Jays. There's a pitch back, the off-speed pitch, the split-finger fastball, and it's 1 ball and 1 strike.
If you're not familiar with the Steve situation, the last 2 starts, he has yet to win a game this year. He's 0-6. Tell you about Dave Steve of the Blue Jays.
And a ground ball hit hard to Santana, and he makes an easy play of it. Rafael Santana playing shortstop tonight.
And a good play by Rafi. Sax hits this high fastball well, but Santana 1 step to his right, plants and throws. Oh, get you by a step.
Fine fielding shortstop for the New York Mets, Rafael Santana. And that'll bring up Ken Landreau, the center fielder. Landreau hitting .262 with 2 home runs and 15 RBI.
2 starts ago, Dave Steve of the Toronto Blue Jays, after losing his 6th game.
Landreau hits it deep to right field. Going back is Danny Heap. It's way back. It is gone. Goodbye. Ken Landreau with his 3rd home run of the year, and the Dodgers quickly take the lead.
That is the 7th home run given up by Ron Darling. The Dodgers taking an early lead on a fastball on the outside part of the plate. Landreau went up and looked for it, got it, and did something with it. Home run number 3 for Ken Landreau. Outside part of the plate, you see him diving across that plate. And this is a rocket to right.
Now back to the live action, and Bill Madlock, the next batter, and he goes after the curveball. First curve thrown by Ron Darling in the ballgame. Madlock hitting .270 with 1 home run, 13 RBI. And the count at 1 ball and 1 strike. Madlock has hit .400 against the Mets so far this year, and this fastball fouled away.
Dave, Steve criticized his teammates 2 starts ago. Said his defense was playing him to pull when he was pitching guys away. Of course, you could move the guys, turn around and move your defense. And then the last game, Lloyd Mosby didn't catch a ball that he thought was catchable, and he criticized Mosby. We'll tell you what he said.
Again, a foul ball.
He said that Mosby probably let the ball drop because he was on the mound. Now, there's got to be something wrong when you make statements like that. No teammate is going to intentionally let a ball drop regardless of his feelings toward a pitcher on his ball club.
I go with that. 1-2 the count to Madlock, and now this one gets away. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Well, it wasn't unusual in the old days of baseball that fistfights would take place on the dugouts. The old Gas House Gang, the Cardinals in the 30s, they used to have a fight a night on their bench.
And the old mustache gang of the Oakland A's. Not that old, really. 72, 3, and 4 world champion.
Fly ball out to center field. Dykstra is there. And 2 men away. Bill Darling, after the home run, comes back to pick up Bill Madlock, and now he'll take on a hot batter in Mike Marshall. Marshall with a 12-game hitting streak, and he has hit 4 home runs in his last 5 ball games. Marshall hitting .255 overall, leading the National League in home runs with 12, and he has 35 RBIs. Marshall tied with Hubie Brooks for the home run lead in the National League. And the fastball hit down the right field side. If it's fair, it's extra bases, but it's a foul ball.
I don't think I've seen this Dodger lineup, usually a very passive lineup, especially the first time around, come out and first ball hit like they've done tonight, especially against a guy like Darling who does have control problems.
There you see the pitcher who will be pitching on Thursday night, Fernando Valenzuela, and he'll be opposed by Sid Fernandez.
Fernando, the player of the week, or the pitcher of the week, 2 consecutive shutouts going his way.
1 strike pitch taken for a ball, and it's 1 ball and 1 strike. Marshall and Darryl Strawberry are tied for game-winning RBIs, leading the National League in that department. Strawberry was originally scheduled to play tonight and was scratched. And the off-speed pitch. Split finger fastball, and it's 1-2. Good pitch by Darling.
Ball really goes down, and Marshall over the top of it.
1-2 the count as Darling works here in the first. The Dodgers leading 1-0 on the home run by Landreau. And now the count 2 balls and 2 strikes.
That was a good pitch. Usually after a split finger fastball or the slow curve to get the 2 strikes, a hitter is looking for it again. And Darling tried to slip the heat by him just a little low.
Frank Pulley, the home plate umpire. And Marshall's still in there with a count of 2 balls and 2 strikes on that borderline call. And he got him with the off-speed pitch. So Darling gives up a home run. The only hit, he picks up a strikeout. And in the inning, 1 run, 1 hit, and no one left on base. The score at the end of the first half inning, the Dodgers won. The Mets coming up. Now here's a word from Ivory Soap.
Dykstra leading off and playing center. Second baseman Wally Backman batting second. Dykstra leading off and playing center. Second baseman Wally Backman batting second. Keith Hernandez hitting in the 3rd hole, and Gary Carter batting 4th. Right fielder Danny Heap batting 5th, followed by George Foster in left field. Ray Knight, the proud papa, at 3rd base batting 7th. Rafael Santana hitting 8th, and Ron Darling on the mound batting 9th.
And Bob Welch with a record of 3-3 on the mound for the Dodgers. 7 years of professional baseball. He has an earned run average of 3.04. He has walked 19, struck out 61, given up 68 hits in 68 innings. So Bob Welch with his first pitch of the ball game, and Dykstra moves out the bunt, takes it for ball 1. Glenn hitting at .268. He has 1 home run, 6 runs batted in. Against the Dodgers, he has had 2 hits and 9 times up this year. And Bob Welch with a fastball, 1 ball, 1 strike.
A lot of times you can look out at the defense if you're a hitter and find out how they're going to pitch you by the way they're playing you. Landreau over toward left center field. No breaking balls from Welch.
Fastball hit to the second baseman, Sachs, and he throws over to Brock for the out.
You ever do that, Ralph?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
The good hitters got to do that. And there's your defense.
It's Brock at first base, Sachs at second, Duncan at short, Madlock at third, Stubbs, Landreau, and Marshall left to right, and the catcher, Mike Scioscia. Now Wally Backman coming up. Wally hitting .404 over his last 15 ball games, and his overall average at .371 for the year with no home runs and 5 RBIs. Wally a switch hitter and better from the left-hand side. Against the Dodgers, he is 2 for 4 this year. And the curveball by Bob Welch for ball 1. Dodgers have the best team ERA in the National League. They're at 3.00. The Mets are second to them, just 3.04. So they're practically the same in the pitching department as far as ERA. Ground ball chopped out to the first base side. Welch over to cover at first, and he does. And the Mets have grounded out for their first 2 outs. That'll bring up Keith Hernandez. Dodgers leading 1-0 on the home run by Ken Landreau. Hernandez coming up, hitting .322 for the year with 2 home runs and 19 RBIs. Keith has been on base with either a hit or a walk in 35 of his 38 games this year.
I guess to simplify that theory of looking out at the outfield to see how they're playing you, if you're a left-handed hitter and you look up and you see all the outfielders shading around toward left field, this is not the case here. You realize the pitcher's not going to throw you a breaking ball. All fastballs, because the breaking ball is the easier of the pitches to pull.
It is much slower than the fastball, and consequently you can pull it without too much trouble. 1 ball, no strikes. And the fastball back 1-1.
Don McMahon, the eye in the sky for the Dodgers, the ex-Major League pitcher for so many years, has the outfielders playing straight away and deep for Hernandez, and that's proper.
And he fouls off the fastball, 1-2.
You want to play guys who use all parts of the field in which to hit. You want to play them straight away. And that's where the Dodgers are playing them, both in the infield and the outfield.
Don McMahon, the eye in the sky, huh? And the fastball outside, 2 balls and 2 strikes. Here's the record, 27-11 to 22-22, runs 181 to 168, home runs 31 to 33, average 261 to 244. Comparative records of the Mets and the Dodgers. And strike 3 called off the fastball, so Bob Welch works a 1-2-3 inning with a strikeout. And the score at the end of 1. The Dodgers won, the New York Mets nothing. Now here's a word from the good olds guys. So far this year in 50 innings of work. Scioscia, a left-hand batter, and hitting .282 for the year with 2 home runs, 8 runs batted in.
And Mike has made a rather remarkable comeback from shoulder problems. He had a partially torn rotator cuff in 1983. He was only up 35 games that year.
And Darling starts off and picks up a strike.
Mike Scioscia batted .296 last year, and he almost became the first catcher to hit .300 since Roy Campanella did it back in 1955.
And the off-speed pitch, the split-finger fastball. Darling using that to his advantage so far in the ballgame.
That is the first Dodger catcher to hit .300.
2 strikes to count to Scioscia, who does not strike out often, and the pitch back is inside, 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Remarkable based on ball to strikeout ratio last year.
And it's hit right up the middle very slowly, and Santana with a relatively easy play, and he picks up the assist as he picks up the out.
Last year, Mike Scioscia struck out 19 times and walked 77 times. It was the best walk to strikeout ratio in the major leagues last year.
He's also number 2 in the league in on-base percentage at .407, which shows you what kind of hits and walks that he picks up in the regular season.
And what you can do when you make the pitcher throw strikes.
167 against Darling, lifetime, as Greg Brock takes the first pitch, a curveball for ball 1. Brock hitting .205 for the year, 4 home runs, 15 RBI. And he loses the bat on that swing. Off-speed pitch, and it's 1 ball and 1 strike. Brock has...
A lot of times when you don't have enough pine tar on that handle, I mean, that bat took off like he meant to do it. Of course, he didn't. But sometimes when you don't have enough pine tar, with that right hand, that bat just slips out of your hand.
There's a switch. He took the glove off now.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
What's going on?
Those batting gloves are to hold onto the bat. He takes it off and goes at it barehanded.
Maybe he didn't throw the bat far enough.
Darryl Strawberry not playing today. He was in the original lineup, but he has a bone bruise on his top hand, his left hand. And so he was scratched from the lineup, but George Foster put in. Darryl originally injured that hand up in San Francisco and then played later on in San Francisco and San Diego. In fact, he scored the winning run on a base hit, his first against a left-hand pitcher in 33 at-bats, stole second and third, and scored in a wild pitch. 3-1 the count to Greg Brock. Brock drove in 2 big runs against the Mets, and they were off Dwight Gooden after that long delay they had in L.A. If you recall, there's ball 4. There was a light shining in from center field. A truck was out in center field. And they count 2 balls and 2 strikes, and we had a delay of about 7 or 8 minutes, and Gooden finally had to throw the pitch to the plate. He was originally thinking fastball. He threw a high curve, and Brock hit it to right field to drive in 2 big runs in a game that Dwight had a no decision.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Doc was saying that he really second-guessed himself on that. He wanted to throw the fastball, but because of the delay, he just went ahead and threw the curveball and got burned.
As you would say, Tim, think long, think wrong.
Think long, you think wrong, right.
Now the batter's Franklin Stubbs. And Stubbs goes after the off-speed pitch. Stubbs hitting at .230, has 6 home runs, 17 RBIs. 1 for 5 against the Mets this year, hitting .200.
Yeah, he only has 20 hits. 6 of them are home runs.
Pretty good ratio.
Not too shabby.
And again, the off-speed pitch, and it's strike 2. So Stubbs being fed a little bit of the never-get-there type pitching.
Yeah, some young hitters are already set up when they come up to the plate. And I would think Carter and Darling will waste the fastball or throw the breaking ball again. They're going to waste the fastball. You want to make sure it's outside.
Right on the outside corner, and Stubbs looking all the way at the only good pitch he had to hit.
That's a tough at bat for young Franklin Stubbs. 2 curveballs, and now this fastball right on the black. A good piece of pitching by Darling.
Second strikeout for Ron. Stubbs back to the bench.
Shaking his head.
Boy, there have been a lot of hitters go back doing that.
You got that. You got 2 of them up here that did it.
You're right. How could he do that to me?
Especially after walking a guy.
That's right. That's really the worst part of it. There's a base hit by Duncan in the left field off the first pitch of Darling. And moving down to second is Brock. So runners now at first and second as Mariano Duncan gets a base hit on his first pitch. He was hitting 190 before that base hit. Did have 2 home runs and 9 RBIs. That'll bring out the pitcher, Bob Welch. Bob has had 2 hits and 22 at-bats. One of his 2 hits, a home run.
Pitcher, Bob Welch.
Well, runners at first and second, 2 men away here in the bottom, on the top half of the second. Dodgers leading 1-0, 2 men out, top of the second inning. And Welch, an idea about bunting his way on. Missed contact with the curveball, strike 1.
Bob's going to tell Gary Carter why he was thinking that way now. Pitchers like to talk about their hitting, don't they?
I love it. 1 ball, 1 strike. Darley missing with a fastball on that pitch. Rahm with a record of 5-0. He's won 4 straight decisions. And a strike call, it's 1-2. Ron, in his last 18 game starts, has had only 1 loss. That dates back to last year.
That was on October 5th against the Montreal Expos when he lost 8-3. That disqualified the Mets.
2 balls, 2 strikes. I don't know, would you say they were disqualified or eliminated?
Eliminated.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
They were, well, in a way, they
Eliminated.
were counted out. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's right.
2-2 with 2 men out. And Bob Welch with a good cut at a fastball. He did get a piece of it, so the count remains at 2 balls and 2 strikes.
I'm in a word slump anyway since the coast trip. Since that flight back from the coast trip.
Boy, that was a tough one, wasn't it? Arriving at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Stopped in Kansas City to refuel.
Say hello to George Brett.
Everything's still the same in Kansas City.
2-2 pitch goes to 3-2. Now the runners will be running with a pitch. That 2-2 pitch is a very important pitch.
Especially with 2 out and runners on base. Steve Stack's the on-deck batter. Now both runners will be running, and with Duncan's speed at first base, he could score on a long single or a short double, just like Enos Slaughter did in the 46 series.
Now the runners go, and the ball hit right at Santana. He handles a bad hop, throws to first base, and gets his man. Raphael keeping that ball in front of him to pick up a big out. So no runs, 1 hit, a walk, and 2 men left on base, and the score at the end of 1.5. It's the Dodgers 1, the Mets nothing. Now here's a word from Garcia Vega. For the second, the Dodgers leading by a score of 1-0, and coming in for the play-by-play, Tim McCarver.
All right, Ralph, thanks a lot. Ken Landreau's first pitch home run off Ron Darling. The difference in this game just underway, really. And Gary Carter, the catcher. Gary battling a slump and batting .233.
Carter was the MetLife Player of the month of April for the New York Mets, and we'll be picking one now for the month of May coming up very shortly.
The MetLife Player of the Game will happen every month, and we'll announce it in our first game of the homestand, of each homestand at the beginning of each month. Fastball for a strike to Gary Carter with that famous last name, huh?
Presidential name?
Yeah. Ex-president. That's the all ex-presidents team right there. Gary Carter still hitting 4th, huh?
Right in the old cleanup spot.
Joe Carter, Gary's brother, batting 5th. Just kidding. Joe's in Cleveland. Got Terry Kennedy, Mitch Johnson, Roy Lee Jackson. The all ex-presidents team. Fastball fouled away, still 0-2 to Gary Carter. They forgot, Bill Webb forgot Rafael Santana.
That's
right?
absolutely right. It's a famous name down in the South.
Rafael Santana, of course. Santana was the president. Was he the president of Mexico, I
Of
believe?
Mexico,
Right.
and I would believe some of the other islands down there, maybe even the Dominican Republic. Very famous name.
To Gary Carter. Nobody out. Bottom of the second inning. Tim McCarver along with Ralph Kiner and Steve Zabriskie. Curveball outside, 1-2.
And we have a very distinguished gentleman sitting next to us in Mr. Fred Wilpon's box. Fred, the president of the New York Mets, Mr. David Walper. He's got a big event coming up pretty soon, doesn't he?
He surely does. Another curveball misses, 2-2.
Statue of Liberty, the Statue of Liberty being unveiled on the 4th of July, and it'll be called, I believe, Liberty Weekend.
Unveiling the new lady here in the harbor. As the fastball gets Gary Carter's second straight strikeout for Welch. He's retired 4 in a row, and the batter, Danny Heath.
And Welch goes to the off-speed pitch. That's just a straight change, and Carter fooled by it and unable to make contact. Incidentally, if you're interested in finding out something about that Liberty weekend on the 4th of July weekend, number to call is 212-972-3434.
Danny Heath batting .318 with a couple of home runs, 12 RBIs. Takes the fastball outside, 1-0. We got Mexican president's team, Rafael Santana.
How about Taft Wright? He was a ball player. They had a President Taft.
Who'd he play for?
Chicago White Sox.
Oh, yeah, but he's not active.
Well, he doesn't have to be active, does he? How do you know he's not active?
Oh, I don't know anybody on the roster of the White Sox named Taft Wright.
No, you don't.
When did he play?
Played in the 30s and 40s. He could hit Bob Feller better than anybody alive.
Is that a fact? Oh, foul ball and just missed. Buddy Harrelson really has a bad angle on a play like that, Ralph.
He does. He's off to the side, and you can't tell whether it goes over the bag, and it went over the bag.
Boy.
There's no doubt about that ball going over the bag, and that's all it has to count. It's not where it hits. It's where whether or not it crosses over that bag at any point.
Buddy said it was about 8 inches outside. The camera didn't show that. This one popped up in the infield. Mariano Duncan, the shortstop, back, and an easy play. 5 in a row, retired by Bob Welch.
Well, here's the ground ball down toward third. Now, it hits in front of the bag, so does it go over the bag? It certainly did. It doesn't make any difference whether it hits in foul territory after it crosses the bag.
That's why you always see those umpires, the first and third base umpires, kicking that bag back toward the infield. A lot of times that bag will jangle loose and wander into foul territory. George Foster, the batter. Welch has retired 5 in a row. 1-0 Dodgers. Bottom of the second. 1-0.
And because Darryl Strawberry had to be scratched from the starting lineup, George was put in left field, and he moved to right.
And George fouls it back. It happens quite often when that does happen that a player has a good night. George, not a strong batting average against Bob Welch. However, he does have 39 lifetime home runs against the Dodgers.
And 2 of them came in the last series in L.A. He had a 2-home-run game against the Dodgers.
One a 3-run shot, the other a solo shot off Jerry Royce. 1-2 to George Foster. And he fouls this one back right below us. To give George a chance to extend those arms on a ball in the middle of the plate or outside part, and that is his power pitch, preferably down. See how Socia wants to work Foster. Fastball away. And George fouls it back. Welch wants power to power, just like in the '81 series against Reggie Jackson. What a classic confrontation that was.
Yeah, Reggie won that one, though, in the long run.
That was in Game 2 when he struck out Jackson, and then in Game 5, I believe it was, Jackson hit the home run to even things up. This is going to be a curveball, probably in the dirt. And it was. Not in the dirt, but out of the strike zone, and Foster goes down. No runs, hits, errors, nobody left. Welch has retired 6 in a row and enjoys a 1-0 lead. We go to the third after this word from Michelob Light. 1940s rural town, right?
That's right.
Say that guy was some kind of hitter, huh?
He was a good hitter. Left-handed batter, and he could hit it hard.
Well, a guy who hit one hard his first time up, but right at Rafael Santana, the batter. Steve Sachs, 1 for 13 against the Mets, but has fared considerably better against the rest of the league. He takes a strike, 0-1. One nothing ball game, top of the third inning. Breaking ball is hammered foul. So it's 0-2, sacks in the hole. Ron Darling asked me to say hello to his dad, whose name is also Ron Darling. He's watching the game up near Worcester, Mass. tonight. This one drilled foul. Sack still alive.
Well, that was a good pitch right there. He really tied him up. Sachs is sort of the whipping boy of the Dodgers.
420 on the road and 284 at home this season. Up, went too far on that one. That's the third strikeout for Ron Darling. One away here in the third inning.
And this is the split finger fastball. It works as a change of pace. A lot of difference in speed on the pitch. And technically it's something very close to a forkball. So Sachs back to the bench.
Ken Landreau, the batter, he homered for the only run in the game. His first at bat, he takes the fastball strike. Kenny's third home run of the year. There's the split finger fastball is low, 1-1. How about that? First career home run at Shea Stadium. Of course, he's not a home run hitter. He did have 12 last year. Good forkball on the corner there, 1-2.
Well, Landreau, with that home run, supposedly has hit a home run in every ballpark in the National League for sure.
And probably in the American League, too. Had that 31-game hitting streak for the Twins back in 1980. And he goes down on strike. He hit a home run on the first pitch and didn't take the bat off his shoulder this time up.
And right here, the fastball breezes right on by, and evidently Landreau had other thoughts in mind. He wasn't looking for a fastball in that spot.
Looked like the same type of pitch that he drilled out of there. So Bill Madlock, the batter, he flied to center his first time up. Cut fastball. Now that's that cut fastball that looks like a slider, but Darling missed with it. 1-0.
That's a much tougher pitch to hit than a slider if you have good accuracy with it.
Yeah, because you can't pick up the spin on the ball. It's almost like a sailor.
That's right. Shine ball if you go way back.
Probably what that Taft right hit.
He can hit those shine balls, boy.
Went over him in the meeting and said a dead shine ball hitter, right? They probably didn't even have meetings back then, huh? Just suit up and go get them.
Just ask for volunteers. Who wants to play?
That's on the corner, and it's 2-2 to Madlock. There's a tough guy to strike out right there.
One of the toughest in baseball. This pitch is right on or off the corner, whichever way you want to look at it.
Looks like it missed to me. But that one did. 3 straight strikeouts for Darling. He struck out the side here in the third. Madlock does not agree, but agreement is not necessary. After 2.5, it's 1-0. Los Angeles, and we go to the middle of the third after this word from Budweiser.
Is with the 1986 official yearbook. This year's edition has 96 pages of action-packed color photos and also contains a special 32-page 25th anniversary feature on the history of the New York Mets. Always a collector's item, so order your 1986 New York Mets yearbook by sending a check or money order made payable to the New York Mets for $6. This includes postage and handling to Promotion Graphics, Department M, 160 Varick Street, New York, New York, 113.
And the most recent father on the Mets team, Ray Knight, the batter, the proud papa of a little bouncing baby girl. 9-pound, 10-ounce. Aaron Shea Knight was born yesterday to Nancy and Ray Knight. As we take a look at our folks from Burger King visiting in our WOR box tonight, and a strike to Ray Knight, 0-2.
That's a little either.
No, that's not a little
baby,
girl.
Yeah.
No, that's, yeah. Well, I mean, little, but not comparatively
Okay.
small.
But Aaron Shea, and the Shea is spelled S-H-E-A. Do you suppose he's trying to perpetuate himself here at Shea Stadium?
Well, he said no. He and Nancy said that they had already selected the name before he was traded to the Mets in late August of 1984.
Wouldn't hurt.
Of course, it wasn't a 2-year pregnancy, however. But if they had another child and it was a girl, it would be Shea, of course. Or part of the name would be Shea. That's a pretty name, isn't it? Aaron Shea Knight. Ray has a lot to be proud of. He's batting .328.
I would
He's
say
hit in 18 of his last 20 games.
very strong candidate for the MetLife Player of the Month of May.
Excellent choice, Mr. Kynan. Well, Bob Welch strikes out Ray in his first at bat. Welch has retired 7 in a row, 4 on strikes, 1 away. And there are the Burger King folks in our WOR booth, enjoying the hospitality of Tom Ryan. Probably sign that check, Bill Webb, tonight when they leave, right? Bill, of course, will want the receipt. Fastball is high to Santana, batting .186 on the year. One and one to Santana, and Welch has shown that he's going to be tough tonight.
In contrast to the last time he faced the Mets.
Breaking ball is fouled away, so it's 1-2.
Well, they have played only 13 home games. That's the Mets. Fewest in the National League. The Dodgers have played 27 home games. The Mets will be playing 34 of their next 48 games at home.
Take them right up to the All-Star break. And it's 2-2 to Santana.
Mets home record 10-3. They have played 25 games on the road, and they are 17-8 on the road.
Breaking ball, he didn't go. No, says first base umpire, Country Joe West.
Dodger bullpen. That might be Phenia. He's back in action again. No, it isn't.
I think it's Ken Howell.
Howell it is, yeah.
Kenny talking about the art of pitching, no doubt. Fastball, he swings through it. So that's the 5th strikeout for Bob Welch. A lot of air balls thrown by both pitchers.
4 strikeouts in the last 2 innings by Bob Welch. This is the 4th one and his 5th in the ball game. And Darling has struck out 5 on the other side.
Well, speaking of Ronnie, here he is. Ron batting .091. He's 2 for 22, the same average Welch has. He fouls it back. Ralph, we mentioned Ronnie's dad's watching tonight up near Worcester, Mass. And we'd like to also wish a speedy recovery to Marie Massey, the mother of our third base cameraman, Jim. She's recovering from hip replacement surgery. And we wish her a speedy recovery watching our game tonight. And it's 0-2 to Ron Darling. Darling has 5 strikeouts. Welch has 5, and we're not through the 3rd yet. There's Jimmy. Pop fly in the infield. Second baseman Steve Sack makes the catch. And Welch has been perfect through 3. Steve joins Ralph right after this word from manufacturers Hanover.
Inning, Dodgers leading 1-0, and coming in for the play-by-play, Steve Zabriskie.
Thanks a lot, Ralph, and a pleasant good evening to you all. It has been as we might have expected, with Darling and Welch battling each other so far. 1-0 Dodgers as we go to the top of the 4th, with each pitcher having struck out 5. Mike Marshall leads it off for the Dodgers. He struck out his first time up to end the 1st inning. And he misses that one for strike 1. Moose, as he is called, also known as Bigfoot because of his size 14s, has been on a tear. 12-game hitting streak, over which he's hit .327 with 5 homers and 12 RBI. Rounded to short. Santana with the easy play and 1 out in the 4th.
And we'd like to remind you to not miss the New York Mets' second bout with the LA Dodgers tomorrow night at 7:30 when the hometown boys host the West Coast live from Shea Stadium right here on Channel 9. Got a little glimpse of the scoreboard. Cincinnati beating Chicago today, 5-4. The Reds are getting back on the track.
As Pete said they always would. Mike Scioscia, the batter, he grounded to short his first time up, and Scioscia takes for strike one. And he lines it softly to Ray Knight for the second out of the inning. And we're breezing here.
Pitchers in command of the ball game. The only big base hit, the home run by Ken Landreau back in the first inning. When you see the all-new Nissan Sentra Sports Coupe, you'll say, buy basics. Hello, Sentra.
Here's Greg Brock with 2 out and nobody on. Greg walked in the second inning, the only walk Darling has issued. Brock hitting .205, but he has hit in 6 of the last 7 games, and he's hit .316 over those 7, so he's picked up the pace a little bit. And he grounds it foul for strike one. In fact, Ralph, you know, the Dodgers overall have picked up their offense after a horrendous start. They couldn't score any runs or do anything right. Of course, they're still making errors.
They're making a lot of errors. There's the scoreboard there. The Reds winning 5-4 with the Cubs. Bottom of the third, no score, Braves and Pirates. Top of the third, Padres 4. The Expos won. They beat the Expos yesterday. And it's Philadelphia 2. The Giants nothing. Bottom of the third. Just getting underway, the Astros against the Cardinals in St. Louis.
And again, as he did in his first at bat, Brock loses the bat. And it's out between first and second.
I think he's getting it down a little better. That one went a little bit farther than the first one.
We're in the 34-ounce bat throw competition.
He might have dropped down and weight a little bit. That would give him some extra distance.
Went to the 33-ouncer on this one.
The form is good. You got to say 10 for form. Actually, when a player does that, it's not because the bat slipped out of his hand. It's because he's totally fooled in the pitch, and he's trying to reach out and hit it, and he sort of lets go with the top hand, and then it slides out of the other.
You've heard of throwing the bat at the ball? That's exactly what's going on.
Really throwing the bat at the ball.
Bounded off the plate. Backman charging. Brock, not a fast runner. Thrown out, and the inning is over. Darling has retired 7 in a row. And in the middle of the 4th inning, still 1-0 Los Angeles. And we're back after this for Nissan. And the top of the order for the Mets. Glenn Dykstra, the leadoff hitter.
And
Bob,
Steve,
excuse me.
While we got a second there, I just want to mention the fact that the June 1st game has been changed. The starting time has been changed from 1:35 to 3:05. And those of you that are planning to attend the game or watch that game, that's a change you should put down. 3:05 game on Sunday, June 1st.
Dykstra takes high and away for ball 1. That is cap day, is it not?
Cap day, big day. This general admission tickets available here at Shea.
And we'll be on the air at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Dykstra rips one foul. Lenny got a fastball up and in and turned on it, but was too far out in front. It's 1-1.
Looking at Len after he makes a move there, he really got around in that pitch, just a shade ahead of the ball, and so he pulled it foul.
And trying to bunt for a base hit. He pops it out towards second. Stacks, not in time. After retiring 9 in a row, Dykstra gets aboard.
So there goes a no-hitter on this bunt. It's just about perfect. Sachs had to wait for it to hit the ground. He couldn't catch it in the air. And Dykstra just outran the throw. You see there, he had no chance to catch it in the air, but he did have to wait for the hop, and it's too late. So the perfect game goes down the drain here in the 4th as Dykstra beats out a bunt.
So Len at first with nobody out. Dykstra with 12 stolen bases, and Wally Backman, who grounded out his first time up, will be the hitter. And Dykstra draws the throw. Len is the club leader with 12 steals.
Coleman and Duncan lead the National League in stolen bases with 19.
Bob Welch, who has won his last 6 decisions against the New York Mets. The last time the Mets beat Bob Welch was on July 12th of 1982.
He got off the hook the last time he faced him in L.A., though. He gave up 10 hits in 5 innings.
Grounded to second, and it could be 2. They will have to hurry, however. And Backman is safe at first. The ball was not sharply hit, and Wally, running well and from the left side, was able to beat it out.
And it was a high bouncing ball, so that took a little bit of time. Duncan making a good try for the dribble play, but Backman with that good hustle down the line just does beat it. Quick release by Duncan, but not in time.
And Duncan does have a great arm. So Backman exchanges with Dykstra at first base with 1 out for Keith Hernandez, who was called out on strikes to end the first inning. Welch has struck out 5. Backman has 3 stolen bases. And a ball outside. This is a mini dilemma, though, Ralph, when you have Hernandez up there, whether or not to send the runner, because Brock being on the bag opens up that left side or right side of the infield for Keith.
Which is a tremendous advantage to a left-hand batter, having that hole to hit through with a man on first. And there's a big advantage right there in Tom Lasorda for people who run restaurants.
Backman had a good lead that time, but was back in time. One ball to count to Hernandez.
That's about as hard a swing as Keith will take in the course of a ball game. He really did take a real rip at that one. Watch this movement. The off-speed pitch, and he's unable to make contact. Welch pitching an outstanding game here.
Before the game, Keith put some tape, which you may be able to see on the middle finger of his right hand. And it looked like it's bothering him a little bit, and he was pulling some of it off. There you get a glimpse of it. Away, and the count 1-2.
So after the off-speed pitch, he goes back to the fastball and keeps behind it. Constant change of speed, the hardest thing for a hitter. Davey Johnson handled a few in his day as a hitter.
Had some fine years at the plate.
2 pinch-hit grand slam home runs in 1 year. The only other person to do that, Mike Ivey, who did it in the same year that Keith did. I should say that Davey did.
Backman at first with 1 out, 1 ball, 2 strikes on Hernandez. Fouled away again, and Hernandez protecting outside as he does so well, keeps the count at 1-2.
That was not the pitch that Keith was looking for, but the fact that he had such great bat control, he was able to be a foul ball hitter on that one. Foul it off even though he had not had the pitch timed. He was looking for something else.
And we've said it before, Ralph, but the good hitters can foul them off, and the bad hitters put them in play. The breaking ball misses outside, so the count evens at 2-2.
Now, Keith has seen everything that Bob has in his repertoire. Change of pace, curveball, fastball. That helps a hitter when you see all the pitches in a sequence of pitching in one at bat.
Welch reminding Backman he has not forgotten about him.
Backman probably saying, hey, I know you're there.
To right and a base hit. Backman will stay at second. Now the ball gets away from Marshall. Backman's going to try for third. He's in there. It'll be a base hit for Hernandez and an error on Marshall, allowing Backman to go to third.
Well, Marshall charges this ball well. Backman is going to stop at second. He doesn't know the ball's been bobbled. Now he gets a sign from Harrelson, come on over. And he hustles over to third. Marshall throwing into second base to make sure Hernandez doesn't go to second. So Marshall, in his haste, makes waste. And an error charge to Mike Marshall, and the Mets now have a runner at third base on the error, and Gary Carter up with one out.
That error, the 54th of the year by the Dodgers. They lead the league in that department. What you might call a negative stat. Carter takes a strike. Gary struck out his first time up, entered the game hitting .233. 7 homers, and the club leader with 28 RBIs, one more than Darryl Strawberry. First and third with one out. Fouled away, and the count 0-2.
Welch making 2 good pitches on Carter, both fastballs. He struck Carter out with a changeup his first time out. Concentration right there, trying to gather everything into his mind.
That was a replay. Now let's see if he does it now live. Shaking off the sign. Yep. Concentration and maybe some contemplation also. Fastball lofted deep to right. Not deep enough, but it will score the run as Marshall makes the catch. Backman comes home, and we have a tie game 1-1. Carter's 29th RBI of the year.
Well, this ball hit a long way. It's a fastball outside. Carter sort of flips at it and drives it to deep right. No play at all at home. Hernandez had tagged up at first. He was looking for a throw home. If it had come that direction, he would have gone to second. But the throw went in the second, and Backman scores the first run for the Mets. It's tied at 1.
Now here's Danny Heap with Hernandez still at first and 2 out. High, ball 1. Danny popped to short his first time up. He's 1 for 6 against the Dodgers this year, but he entered the game hitting .318. Just missed. 2-0. Danny has hit in 9 of the 10 starts he has previously made, and as you see, the Mets are 9-1 in those 10 starts. Ground ball to Brock, who makes a good play and will step on the bag to end the inning, but the Mets pick up a run on 2 hits. 1 was left. At the end of 4 here at Shea in the first of a 3-game series against the Dodgers, 1-1. Now here's a word from Burger King. Top half of the 5th inning for the Dodgers as we look at the American League scoreboard.
And the Red Sox on top in their division over the Yankees by a 1.5, leading 2-0 over the Indians. Top of the 4th. No score. The Blue Jays and Twins underway. Same for the Brewers and Royals. And in the bottom of the 1st inning, no score. White Sox playing the Rangers.
Franklin Stubbs will lead it off for the Dodgers. Mariano Duncan and Bob Welch to follow here in the 5th. Stubbs struck out looking his first time up. Way inside with a breaking ball, ball 1. Did you not find it a little unusual, Mr. Kiner, that 4 National League teams, including the Mets, did not play on Memorial Day yesterday?
First time that I haven't been at a ballpark on Memorial Day since 1945.
1-1 now to Stubbs as he fouls it off.
And it was usually a doubleheader Memorial Day. But in 1945, I was in the service. From 46 on, I was playing baseball or at a ball game.
I just can't fathom why in the world they would do it. I guess it was just a quirk of the scheduling, but certainly unusual. All the American League teams were in action, but San Francisco, Los Angeles, the Mets, and who was the 4th team?
Well, Houston, I should say San Diego did play in Montreal.
Right. San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, and somebody else didn't play yesterday, and I can't think of who it is. We'll find out by the process of elimination. Philadelphia Phillies. Thank you.
You know, people have a good time on holidays when they don't go to the ballpark.
You mean they don't have a good time when they do go to the ballpark?
No, when you go to the ballpark, you always have a good time. But this is the first time I ever knew when people didn't come to a ball game on a holiday, they do things, don't they?
Yeah.
They don't just sit around.
Right. They go to the beach, have a barbecue.
Something like that.
Strike 3 call. Fastball on the inside corner. Darling has struck out 6 and has retired 8 in a row.
Shortstop, Mariano.
Ron came into this game with 30 strikeouts, so he now has 36 for the year. And that pitch, a borderline strike, called strike 3. And Stubbs now has struck out twice, and both times looking.
Mariano Duncan got a base hit. One of only 2 allowed by Darling so far. And he thought he might try to bunt his way on, but he pulled it back, and it was a strike anyway. Oh, a 1 ball. No. 0-1. Scoreboard put a ball up there, but I distinctly saw Frank Pulley call that a strike. And he went too far, and it's strike 2.
Well, here's that last pitch. He tried to hold up, but the call made by the home plate umpire, Frank Pulley, so not even an appeal called with the third base umpire, Steve Ripley. Believe it or not.
Strikeout number 7. Darling struck out the side in the 3rd, and he has struck out the first 2 hitters here in the 5th.
Well, this one's a real good curveball. Darling's best curve of the night, and it really breaks off. So Duncan, no chance at all on this one.
Pitcher, Bob.
And Darling having a big strikeout night.
And another guy who's been pitching a pretty good ball game, Bob Welch, will be the hitter with 2 out and nobody on. Welch grounded to short to end the 2nd inning, and he fouls this one off for strike 1. Bob had a couple of years when he hit over 200 in the big leagues as a pitcher, back in 80 and 81. He hit over 230 one year and over 240 another year, but he's a career 180, 185 hitter.
We were talking, and you do that a lot on these long road trips that the Mets have just returned.
A lot of traveling this time to talk.
About the best hitting pitcher around of late, and we sort of decided on Don Larson. Larson, of course, did play the outfield for the Yankees. When he didn't pitch, he was used as a pinch hitter. And Artie Richmond reminded us that Larson, being an old St. Louis Brown, once had 7 hits in a row.
As a pitcher?
As a pitcher.
That's pretty good.
So you'd have to say that he was pretty good with that bat.
Wasn't Warren Spahn a pretty good
Good hitter, very good.
And they tried the breaking ball in the dirt. The count evens at 2-2.
But one thing, that don't bring up Babe Ruth now. He was a pitcher, because we're going to get that back.
That's a little unfair, though. I mean, yeah. Again, we remind you, Sunday's game here at Shea has been moved from 1:30 to 3 o'clock. The 3:05 start will be on the air at 3 for Cap Day. Breaking ball missed, and the count full now to Bob Welch with 2 out here in the 5th inning.
I think
think I saw something the other day, Ralph, where in Babe Ruth's first season, when he was strictly a pitcher, he only had like 3, 4, 5 home runs, something like that.
That was more than the whole team had.
Strike 3 called, and Darling strikes out the side for the second inning. He has also retired the last 10 Dodgers in a row. Still 1-1 in the middle of the 5th, and we're back after this for Budweiser.
Steve Zabriskie, and it'll be George Foster, the leadoff for the Mets. George was struck out his first time up. And Bob Welch with his curveball, and it's a swinging strike. Welch struck him out with a curveball, was not in the dirt, but it was out of the strike zone his first time up. You know, talking about hitting pitchers, the most hits by a pitcher in a career was by Cy Young, 618. Walter Johnson had 542, and Red Ruffing 520. The most hits in the season, George Yulee of Cleveland in 1923 had 52. And the fastball is high. Wes Farrell had 52, and Carl Mays had 49. Here's career home runs against L.A. Hank Aaron, 77, Mays, 57, Banks, 41.
And Foster with 39, and Foster also has the most against Los Angeles at Dodger Stadium after the 2 he hit in the series in L.A. last week.
Most home runs hit by a pitcher in a career, 38 by Wes Farrell.
The thing about being a good hitting pitcher or a pitcher who has a lot of career hits, you also have to be a good pitcher, so you get a lot of at bats.
Absolutely right. And he gets him with a fastball this time, so Bob Welch picking up his 6th strikeout. And we now have a total of 14 strikeouts in this game.
Well, Foster apparently looking for the breaking ball, takes the fastball right down the middle.
So 1 away, and that'll bring up Ray Knight, who was caught looking his first time up. Babe Ruth as a pitcher, and this is only when he was pitching, had 15 home runs, drove in 73 runs, and hit 304.
Not too shabby.
Not bad. George Yulee, 9 home runs, 157 runs batted in, and hit 288, second to Ruth for the all-time high average. 1 ball, no strikes to Ray Knight.
What a waste it would have been had Ruth remained as a pitcher his entire career.
He racked up some awfully big records as a pitcher.
Well, he never would have hit the home runs he hit, that's for sure.
Ripped to left. If it's fair, it's extra bases. It's foul. So the new father still strong, pulling the ball foul. Ray Knight right here, certainly a candidate for the MetLife Player of the Month of May. And we won't even include the fact that he became a father in the month.
Which should give him some extra votes, I'm sure. He was also a candidate for the month of April. He's just been red hot since the beginning of the season.
No doubt about it.
And he just scalded that ball.
Ray hitting .328 with 6 home runs, 18 RBI.
There's the announcement on Diamond Vision of the birth of their second daughter.
Aaron Shea Knight. And the 1-1 pitch, there's that cut fastball. It looks a little like a slider, but it's throwing a little bit harder. It doesn't have the spin on it that a slider has.
And consequently, it didn't break as far outside as Knight thought it was going to. He gave up on that pitch. And it didn't break away off the corner. It stayed over the plate.
And this one hit foul back into the stands. Again, the fastball, and the count remains at 1-2.
Knight is 3 hits away from having 1,000 career base hits. And the fact that Ray's been in the big leagues 9 or 10 years now, it really makes Pete Rose's speed amazing, doesn't it?
Over
4,200.
Yeah, over 4,200. Again, a foul ball, this time in the Dodger dugout. Count remains at 1 ball and 2 strikes. Have another big crowd on hand here tonight. Must be very close to 40,000. And again, Knight struck out. Got him on a pitch out of the strike zone. 7th strikeout for Bob Welch.
And Ron Darling has 8, so they're really going after it here. Knight chasing the ball with a strong late break on it. Both Darling and Welch in command of their downers.
And it brings up Rafael Santana. And Santana has also been struck out in this game. We're in the 5th inning. There have been 15 strikeouts. And the curveball hangs high. Rafael hitting 186 coming into this game with 13 hits. And he misses a fastball. 1 ball, 1 strike. Look out. It got him. So the fastball gets Rafael Santana on the hand. And the Mets have a base runner.
The pitch before this, Welch came in with a tight fastball to get the strike, and this one too tight as Santana unable to get out of the way, and it hits him on his trailing arm. Might have caught his elbow or forearm. Yeah, it did hit him right on the elbow. If you've ever bumped what they call your crazy bone, you can imagine how that feels when you get plunked by a fastball right there.
Welch has that velocity up around 90 miles an hour, and so cowhide against bone hurts. They no longer make baseballs out of horsehide. That's right. Ran out of horses. That brings up Ron Darling. Ron flied to the second baseman, popped up to the second baseman his first time up. And he gets a curveball. About bunting, and he misses the curveball. Strike 2.
He had a pretty good pitch to try to bunt, the breaking ball, but he started a little too late.
And again the curveball and the quick strike call. So Walt strikes out the side, hitting 1 batter, leaving 1, and the score at the end of 5, it's the Dodgers 1, the New York Mets 1. Now here's a word from the good old guy. Here in the top of the 6th, grounded weakly out to the third base side, and Ray Knight picks up a quick out. We have with us Eddie Lynch of the New York Mets, currently on the disabled list. And Eddie, a little comment about these 2 pitches. They look tough.
Well, they're on both of them on a way to outstanding strikeout games. I'm really not too sure what the record is for most strikeouts combined, but they've got to be well on their way to getting near it.
I have to guess, and we've been trying to find out what it is, that it would be somewhere around 30 strikeouts.
I would think around the 30 range, yes.
And we have 16 so far in this ball game, and a good curveball to Ken Landreau. Landreau with a home run to count for the Dodgers, 1 run. He also was struck out, so he's 1 for 2 tonight. 1-1 ball game, top of the 6th inning, 1 man out. And the split finger fastball. When are you going to throw that, Ed?
Well, I've been working on it as a bullpen while I've been on the disabled list. Tim McCarver just informed me that the record is 28 for combined strikeouts in a 9-inning game, so they have a shot at it.
16 strikeouts, and we're in the top of the 6th inning. 2 strikes to count to Landreau. That one close.
Eddie, what kind of progress have you been making? You and I were talking in the clubhouse before the game, and your leg looks terrific after the surgery.
Well, it feels really well. It's been 5 weeks and 3 days, and Dr. Parks did examine me today, and he's pretty much given me the okay to start doing some vigorous activity.
Great.
And that one just outside again, that off-speed pitch. 2 balls and 2 strikes. The record was set back in 1972. On September 15th, Cincinnati had a total of 15 strikeouts for their side, and the San Diego Padres had 13 strikeouts for their side. So it didn't take place when someone was setting a big strikeout record, such as 19 strikeouts for Tom Seaver, or 19 for Steve Carlton, or 19 for Nolan Ryan, or 20 for Roger Clemens, who did that this year. 2-2. The count remains for Ken Landro.
Ed, do they have a target date for you as to when you might expect to come back?
Well, I'm hoping the next week or so I could try to, I don't know what the plans are, the ball club's plans, but I feel like I'm ready to pitch in a game in the next week or 10 days, yes.
Good.
2-2. Foul away.
And I'm sure that the fans would want to know what it is you have been doing to recuperate from arthroscopic knee surgery.
Well, basically, the first couple of weeks are just rest. You can't really do anything in terms of rehabilitation. But lately I've been riding an exercise bike, and today I started on the side decks to re-strengthen it. But I haven't been able to throw, fortunately, for the last 2 weeks, so my arm is in shape.
2-2 pitch, and strike 3. Strikeout number 9 for Ron Darling. The second time that Landro has struck out, and he got him with the split-finger fastball.
Darling has now retired 12 in a row. And of those 12, he has struck out 7, including striking out the side in the 3rd and the 5th innings.
And it brings up Bill Madlock, a tough man to strike out, although Ron picked him up on a strikeout in the 3rd inning, got him looking. Fastball for ball 1. 1-1 ball game, 2 men out. We're in the top of the 6th inning. And a split-finger fastball, the off-speed pitch. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Madlock, a career .309 hitter, and there aren't many guys around who have been around any length of time these days who have a career batting average over 300.
With Carew gone, he is the #1 man for having led the league in hitting. He has led the league in hitting 4 times. Carew now out of baseball. The all-time leader for leading the league in hitting, Ty Cobb, who did it 12 times. 4 times in modern-day baseball or something. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Crowd hyping it up for another strikeout. And the curveball just does miss. You count 2 balls and 2 strikes. This was a big curve.
This is the key to Ron Darling's success, along with the forkball or split-finger fastball. He must get the breaking ball over, and he has done it with effectiveness tonight.
Both sides with only 2 hits in this game. Fastball hit on the ground to Santana, and he has it, and that'll do it. 13 in a row for Ron Darling, and the score at the end, 5.5 innings. It's the Mets 1 and the Dodgers 1. Now here's a word from Sunoco.
The old announcers. Well, tomorrow night at 6, the Harts become targets for murder. Evans. Join Robert Wagner and Stephanie Powers as Jonathan and Jennifer Hart on Heart to Heart, right here on Chanel number 9.
I understand you were the man in the back of that horse.
I was on the left. That's correct. And way back.
Here's Len Dykstra, the leadoff, and he gets a curveball. Home plate umpire Frank Pulley said it was up and over. Bob Welch, who has pitched very well in this ball game. 1-1 ball game. We're in the bottom half of the 6th. Thought it was in the strike zone. Dykstra in this game has had a base hit. As a matter of fact, he had the first hit of the ball game for the Mets when he had a bunt base hit. And he takes the strike call. Sitting in with us here on our broadcast, Ed Lynch. And Ed, it's the good old-fashioned pitchers do.
It really is. We have 2 top right-handers here. Good breaking ball.
And Dykstra takes that fastball right up the middle for his 2nd hit, and only the Mets' 3rd and only the 5th in this ball game.
Well, as Pete Rose likes to say, right back through the originator. And when you've got a guy that's going well as a hitter, that's what you want to think about up there when your guys are getting struck out left and right, is hitting one back up the middle. Dykstra did exactly that.
So Len is on for Wally Backman. Duplication of the 4th inning when Dykstra was on base with no one out and Backman the batter. Wally grounded into a force play. Later on, Hernandez singled, with Backman going to 3rd and the error by Mike Marshall, the right fielder, and scoring on a sacrifice fly by Gary Carter. That tied it up. So Backman at the plate as Dykstra draws the throw over at first base. Lenny, the most successful men on the bases this year for the Mets. He's had 12 stolen bases out of 13 attempts. Madlock, the third baseman, looking for a bunt, and this ball ripped down the right field line. It'll be extra bases. Should score Dykstra. Dykstra on his way to third, being waved in, and the play at the plate is not in time, and the Mets take the lead 2-1. Wally Backman.
Wally entered this game hitting .371. But as a left-handed hitter, he is hitting .404 at the start of play today. Ron Peronowski's on the phone to the bullpen as the Mets have taken a 2-1 lead. Boy, Backman really turns on this inside fastball and nails it down the line. Dykstra was not running on the play, but he runs so well he was able to score fairly easily. Now watch Stack's double clutch. We don't see it, but he double clutched a little bit. It wouldn't have made any difference. Even if he had gotten rid of the throw immediately, there's no way he would have gotten Glenn Dykstra. Here he is. He bobbles the ball. It looks like he has trouble finding the grip, but it really makes no difference. Even though he makes a pretty good throw, you can see Dykstra's already on his way to the dugout.
And as we pointed out earlier in the ball game, the shift against Backman was toward left field, and Wally pulling the fastball. Drilled it down in the corner, and the right fielder, Mike Marshall, shifted way over in right center, had no chance to get to it in time to keep Dykstra from scoring from first. So the Mets have a lead of 2-1, a runner at second base, and the batter is Keith Hernandez. Keith with a base hit and 2 times up in this game. Welch breaking contact with the pitching rubber. So Keith steps out of the batter's box. And Hernandez up the middle, hits the heel of Bob Welch and goes high in the air. Might even have hit the pitcher's rubber. And on the base hit, Backman goes to third. So Keith gets a base hit. And that ball probably hit the pitching rubber, which is something you seldom see.
And if it did, or whatever it hit, it certainly was a break for the Dodgers. Yeah, it hit the pitching rubber and went straight up in the air. Had it gone on through, and it probably would have gone on through, it was hit so hard, Backman would have scored, Hernandez would have had an RBI, and the Mets would have been up 3-1. But the fortunes of baseball. It popped straight up in the air, and Backman had to hold up.
So 3 consecutive base hits. No one out, a run in, runners at first and third, and the batter is Gary Carter, who drove in the tying run back in the 4th inning for the sacrifice fly. And Carter, an idea about bunting, and that had to be all his own. Goes after a pitch out of the strike zone. He was trying to decoy everybody. In a situation where you're looking for Carter to be swinging away, third baseman Bill Madlock was fairly deep at third, and Carter wanted to take advantage of that. Tom Lasorda and Ron Peronowski looking on. Mets trying to break this game open. And the fastball is in tight. Carter couldn't get his bat out of the way, and it's a foul ball, strike 2. Carter with his RBI in the 4th inning now with 28, make that 29. Club leader in the department for the Mets.
When you're struggling at the plate, things like that seem to happen, where the ball hits your bat. Similar pitch on which Rafael Santana was hit earlier.
Backman at third, Hernandez at first, no one out. We're in the bottom half of the 6th inning. And this ball popped into left center field. It'll drop in for a base hit. Hernandez goes to second base as Backman scores, and the Mets lead it by a score of 3-1.
Gary protecting with 2 strikes, and he's strong enough that even though he only had a half swing at it, he muscled it into center field. to pick up his second RBI of the ball game. Backman scoring easily. And it's 3-1 New York.
Still no one out. 4 straight base hits, and Danny Heap the batter. And Ed Lynch, as a pitcher, you make a good pitch, and that ball hit like that.
It's really nice to see something like that happen with Gary. He is struggling a little bit, and maybe something like that, a little cheap hit like that, will turn things around for him.
And Danny Heap gets a curveball for his first pitch. He calls strike. Danny 0 for 2. He has popped up and grounded out. And the fastball line to left field, a base hit. Carter will be held at third base. Throw comes in from Stubbs, but the base is loaded as the Mets get 5 consecutive base hits. They have scored 2 runs, and Tom Lasorda going out to the mound. The roof has caved in on Bob Welch, who was breezing along on a 1-run, 2-hit ball game until the 6th inning. And then the roof caved in as Dykstra singled, Backman doubled, Hernandez singled, and Carter singled, followed by Heap with a single. So while we have a change in pitchers, now here's a word from AT&T. Well, a new pitcher in the ball game for the Dodgers, Tom Niedenfuer, with a record of 2-2. He's had 3 saves. This is his 20th appearance. And he'll be pitching to George Foster.
Well, Niedenfuer, most often used in late innings and save situations. But Tom Lasorda has had so many problems with his bullpen this year that he's got to go with somebody right now who he feels can stop this with nobody out and the bases loaded.
Well, Niedenfuer has already stopped 1 fight tonight. Maybe he can stop a few hitters. It was reported to us that Sachs and Brock got into a fight in the runway prior to the ball game, and Niedenfuer broke up the fight. That's unofficial, of course.
And Ed Lynch is still with us. What did Tony, the clubhouse guy, tell you about Niedenfuer, that he hurt his arm?
Well, I don't know. I heard through somebody that he got a little cut on his arm, but I'm sure it's not.
Obviously, it's not major, or he would be in there, or wouldn't be in there, I should say.
So Tom Lasorda frustrated here as the Mets have broken open a 1-1 ball game to some degree with 5 consecutive hits off Bob Welch. And now Niedenfuer to pitch to George Foster with the bases loaded, no one out. We're in the bottom half of the 6th inning. Never forget the time that Steve Garvey and Don Sutton got into a fight prior to a ball game here at Shea Stadium. I interviewed Garvey after the game, and I asked him, do you want to talk about it? He says, no, I don't want to talk about it, but he had had a few bruises on his face. And Foster goes after a fastball. George has struck out twice in this game, both times on fastballs. Hernandez at third base, Carter at second base, and Heap at first. The Dodgers in a heap of trouble. And it's drilled down the left field line. If it's fair, it's extra bases. It is fair, and it is a home run. A grand slam home run by George Foster. That is his 14th grand slam home run, and the Mets take the lead by a score of 7-1.
Boy, I'll tell you, one look is worth more than 1,000 words right there. Niedenfuer standing in dejection, and you might have thought that that was a freeze-frame videotape. He did not move for a full minute.
George Foster with a grand slam home run, his 14th. And the Mets are leading by a score of 7-1.
Foster now second Among active players in the major leagues, Dave Kingman has 15 career grand slams, and now we're going to have a fight as Knight was hit.
Ray Knight taking that blow from Niedenfuer after the grand slam home run by Foster, and a melee going on.
Davey Johnson talking to Ray Knight, who is being held by Joe West. I mean, Knight just snapped.
I want to tell you, Ray Knight is some sort of a strong person. He is rough and tough. And he challenged Niedenfuer, who is much bigger than he. Joe West trying to keep Knight out of it. Also there is Gary Carter, Howard Johnson, Ray Knight.
He may have the strongest hands and arms for anybody his size in baseball.
Tonight you can see down to the ground, got some strawberries on his elbow. And we'll see how the umpires will handle this. Obviously, there will be a warning by the umpires. And this is the way it looked. Niedenfuer inside, getting Knight.
There's no reason, there's no question as to why he was hit. Niedenfuer obviously upset. Niedenfuer gets 2 points for the double leg takedown. And I'll tell you, there were a few other little isolated fights going on in this bench clearing melee.
Watch Shosha here. Now he comes out behind Knight. Niedenfuer puts the tackle on Knight, gets him to the ground, but Knight is pummeling Niedenfuer in the back, and then they all come around.
I have to say, Ralph, this brings back memories of last September in Los Angeles when I was involved in a little melee out there.
You and Mariano Duncan.
How about you in the fight with Keith Moreland in Chicago?
Well, yeah, we're averaging one a year, so at least I wasn't involved in this one.
The one in Chicago was just like this. You hit Moreland charged, and you went into a tackle position.
Yeah, like most fights, you just wind up dancing with somebody for a little while, and they break it up. But I would be surprised to see somebody get hurt in this fight tonight because a lot of spiked shoes out there and a lot of hands on the ground, and that's the thing you have to worry about.
I think Lasorda wants to find out why Frank Pulley hasn't done anything.
Well, the fight I was involved in Chicago in '84, the umpire said after it was over, I know you and Keith Moreland are both professionals. I'm not going to eject either one of you, and let's just try to go on from here. And I think that's a good policy here. This fight was a little more widespread, I think, than that one, but I'm not surprised by this decision.
Now, crew chief Billy Williams and Lasorda nose to nose. He's figuring that Ray Knight started it, and that Niedenfuer ought to be allowed to drill somebody after somebody hits a grand slam home run off of him, I guess. Yeah, it looks like Niedenfuer has a swollen right eye. You can see there's a little mouse right underneath his right eye. Now let's go back to Foster's 14th career grand slam. George now second on the active list behind Dave Kingman. And he's tied with Gil Hodges for 8th on the all-time list. And Niedenfuer's expression says it all. With that grand slam, Foster moves ahead of our colleague Ralph Kiner, who had 13 career grand slams.
So George with that grand slammer, and this is Niedenfuer's reaction to that. And this is his next pitch after the grand slam home run. It hits Ray Knight. Knight fires the bat down, charges the mound. And Knight pounding on him as Niedenfuer takes him to the ground. And now some really heavy tromping around out there.
Bill Robinson, the Mets first base coach, came right in and took Scioscia off the top of both of them, or there might have been more injuries sustained by both players. You can see Niedenfuer's right eye. He's got a shiner.
Phil Niedenfuer now pitching to Rafael Santana. The Mets leading 7-1. 6 runs in this inning. Still no one out. Knight is on at first base. And Santana looks again, and it's ball 2. 2 balls, no strike.
And with all that, Ralph, it sort of takes away a little bit from the fact delivering with what the fans have been desiring so often when he's been up to the plate, especially with men on base.
Foster's 3rd home run against the Dodgers this year, and that fastball fouled into the stands. He had a 3-run home run against the Dodgers and Jerry Royce, and followed that with a solo home run, and now here a grand slam home run. And as you saw the stats earlier, Foster with the most home runs against the Dodgers of any active player today. There's George Foster. He's the guy that started it all. And the fastball is missed. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Niedenfuer has had a tough time this year. That certainly had to add to it. Tom Lasorda, and he won't duck a fight either. He'll be out there.
Well, he was going after Frank Pulley and Billy Williams. There's no doubt about that.
And it's sliced to right. Another base hit. Knight goes to second and holds there, and Marshall gets it back in. Still no one out. The Mets have sent 8 men to the plate. They have picked up 7 hits. 1 batter hit by a pitch ball, and now the 9th man to come up in this inning with no one out, Ron Darling. Darling in this ball game is 0 for 2. Squares the bunt, and it's a good bunt. Niedenfuer with a bad throw to first. It's bobbled there, and the bases are loaded. And there will be an error charge, in all likelihood, to Niedenfuer, who bobbled at first and then threw it badly.
Ron Darling will more than likely be credited with a sacrifice on the play, however. The error allowing him to be safe at first, and it is going to be a sacrifice. Bases are now once again loaded with nobody out. Darling makes a good sacrifice bunt. Niedenfuer just overran it, and then in his haste, when he did still have time to get Darling, threw it low, a 1-hopper to Sachs covering, and Niedenfuer gets some boos as he leaves. It's been a bad day for Niedenfuer, and he takes a shiner into the clubhouse with him on top of it.
So the Mets leading by a score of 7-1. 5 of the runs charged against the record of Bob Welch, the starting pitcher, and 1 so far against Niedenfuer. And while we have a minute here for the new pitcher to come in, here's a word from Nissan. Ed Vandenberg, the new pitcher for the Dodgers, his record 0-2 with no saves. Replacing Niedenfuer, Vandenberg with 19 in the 3rd innings work, 8 walks, 10 strikeouts, 17 hits. And Ed, I remember a big fracas they had down in Atlanta, and Bob Horner, who was up in the stands in the press box, got down in the fight. Where were you in this one?
I was up in the... I was going to jump on the screen and roll down, but it looked a little far. I didn't want to go on the DL again, but it is just my luck. I'll be up here when they start a fight.
Oh, Lasorda's really blowing his stack right here. I believe he's been ejected from the ballgame, but we'll check on that. Is he still there? Now we're all set to go. Dykstra with the first pitch hit the left center and is caught out there by Landreau. And the runners hold. Knight stays at 3rd base. Santana stays at 2nd base. And at first base is Ron Darling. So the first out after 10 batters bat for the New York Mets.
And Ralph, I want to correct something. We gave the wrong stat on Foster's career grand slam. It's actually his 13th, not his 14th.
Eddie Murray had his 14th this year.
Right, and Dave Kingman has 15. So George, #1 active among National League players, and does not pass you, but ties you on the all-time list.
Get to live a little longer, huh? In the record book. Now the batter is Wally Backman. Dykstra incidentally singled to start off this inning. And now making an out here in the same inning. We're in the bottom half of the sixth. Backman doubled to drive in the tie-breaking run. So Backman has a game-winning RBI in this game, putting the Mets ahead 2-1. They now lead 7-1, bases loaded, 1 out. And Vandenberg missing with a breaking ball.
Incidentally, also, both teams were given warnings by the umpire. There was no other action taken. So the boys in blue showing some restraint, even in the face of Tom Lasorda's complaints.
1 ball, no strikes. Backman batting from the right-hand side, and a strike call, so it's 1-1. Alejandro Pena throwing in the bullpen. He has just been reactivated. He missed just about all of the season last year. Had a shoulder operation. And it's in the dirt. Good play on it by Mike Scioscia. 2 balls, 1 strike. Knight, the man at third base. At second base, Santana. Dowling at first. The pleasure of having Ed Lynch up in the booth with us. Ed, I would say the toughest man I've ever seen in one of those brawls was Dave Kingman.
I've never seen Dave get upset on the field or off the field, thank God, because he's one of the strongest guys I've ever had the pleasure of playing with. Keith Hernandez told me he had the pleasure of getting in between Dave and Lynn McLaughlin when Dave charged the mound one time, and Dave just kind of ran him over, didn't even feel him when he knocked him down. So I'd have to put Dave against anybody.
Lasorda still in the ball game. Count 2-2 to Backman, and that fastball missing, and it's 3-2. So bases loaded, 3 balls, 2 strikes on Wally Backman. Pitch, and it's fouled off, and they'll do it again.
Here's the line on Bob Welch, by the way, since all of his runners have now scored. He went 5+ innings, charged with 6 earned runs. He gave up 7 hits. He did strike out 8 and did not walk a batter. And of course, Welch stands to be the losing pitcher. Niedenfuer pitched no innings as such. Gave up a run on 2 hits so far. Still responsible for all 3 base runners.
And the 3-2 pitch again fouled off. Niedenfuer, of course, the man who hit Ray Knight, which precipitated the fight. And he also was the man who gave up the home run to George Foster with the bases loaded. Three and 2 the count. Vandenberg acquired from Seattle for for Steve Yeager. And when the Dodgers got the left-handed pitcher, there was a lot of rhetoric written about the fact that this would put them over the hump as far as their pitching was concerned. And it's driven right at Sachs, a chance for a double play, and they get it. So out of the inning, the Mets send 11 to the plate. They score 6 runs on 7 hits. There were no errors, 1 batter hit by a pitch ball, and 2 men left on base, and the score at the end of 6. As Tim McCarver comes back in, the Mets 7, the Dodgers 1. Now here's a word from Ninex.
Never used that term after that fight. How can you go to the dance without me, pal?
That was your kind of inning.
Man.
It was a little
well, I'll tell you,
scary, though, at times.
Well, it was. It was a frightening situation because there was the difference of there's some fights, Eddie, that break out and they're not serious. Guys kind of tiptoe around out there and a lot of pushing and shoving, but not that fight.
No, that was fairly serious. I saw a few sideshows going on there beside the main event. And again, on natural grass, there's a lot of steel spikes out there and a lot of hands on the ground, and it's a good way to get hurt.
Mike Marshall leads off for the Dodgers here in the 7th inning. If Darling retaliates, it's see you later. Check swing. No, says Joe West. Ball 1.
Incidentally, the 7 runs scored in the 6th inning by the Mets, their biggest inning this year and the biggest since September of last year in the 1st inning against the Pirates.
1-1 to Mike Marshall. 7-1. The Mets scored 6 runs in the bottom of the 6th, and I'll tell you, they didn't do it in cheap fashion. There were some rockets hit.
Did I say 7 runs in the inning? 6 runs in the inning, the biggest since they scored 7 September of last year.
7 overall. No big deal. Well, the one thing you do not want to have happen is for the crowd to become involved. You can understand how it affects people vicariously from an emotional standpoint. But that will not be allowed. 36,700 total on hand and 35,643 paid. Fastball is high. 2-1 to Mike Marshall. Eddie, I think you went through that in Chicago at Wrigley Field a couple of years ago when the crowd there became involved.
Yeah, especially Wrigley Field, where the crowd is right on top of the field. They started to get pretty much right into our dugout, and there was some beer thrown, and first base coach Phil Robinson had a full beer and throw right in his face. So anytime that you have a benches clearing brawl like this, it's important to maintain crowd control, and I think the umpires did a good job at this one.
I do too. 3-1 to Marshall. Line drive. Back over the head of Ronnie. And for the Dodgers, that's only hit number 3 in their first hit since the 2nd inning.
And Marshall extends his hitting streak to 13 games. Cincinnati beat Chicago 5-4 today. In the 7th, Atlanta leads Pittsburgh 2-1, and then they'll be leaving later. In the 6th inning, it's 4-3, San Diego over Montreal. San Francisco and Philadelphia tied 2-2 in the 8th, and Houston leading St. Louis 1-0 bottom of the 4th.
Mike Scioscia 0 for 2. He's lined to third and grounded to short. Swing and a miss. It's a split finger fastball. 0-1 to Mike Scioscia.
Timmy, if I can say one thing, that last inning had to last about 45 minutes, and I know it's great when you're on the bench and you have a long inning, you score a lot of runs, but it can work against you, and it's important, I think, for Ronnie to get good and physically loose here, because he has been on the bench for quite a while.
Jam shot to short. Santana to Backman, and no chance for a double play. Backman had to reach up and back to his right for that ball. And the sliding Marshall did his job, so there's one away.
This ball was not hit hard enough to make it an easy double play, and Marshall did a good job coming to the inside of the bag in an effort to disrupt Backman, and he did a good job of doing it because Backman was unable to even attempt to complete the double play.
And the batter, Greg Brock. What's it like after a long layoff like that, Eddie? You're glad that you're kind of torn in between two things. You're glad for the run. You realize you got to get loose.
Yeah, you have to. And just to run out of the dugout, get on the mound right away, and throw as many pitches as you can in a short period of time.
Base hit for Greg Brock. His first of the night. Scioscia stops at second base.
It also worked against Ronnie. He got doubled off at first base in the inning, so he had to walk all the way back in the dugout and get his gear, so he didn't have as much time to warm up.
You mentioned the umpires and their prudence and the crowd control. I think they handled the whole situation primarily because they understood the situation, and that's why they allowed both Niedenfuer and Knight to stay in the ballgame.
Well, as I said earlier, when I was involved with the Moreland after it was broken up, Bob Davidson, the home plate umpire, came out and said, Ed, I know you and Keith are both professionals, and I'm going to let you stay in the game and no more funny business. And that was the end of it. And I think that'll be the same situation here.
Curveball to Franklin Stubbs, a swing and a miss. Franklin 0 for 2. He was strikeout number 2 in the second and strikeout number 6 in the fifth. Darling has struck out 9. He's walked 1. Another curveball and a beauty. Darling had his breaking ball from pitch 1, didn't he?
Yes, he did, and as I mentioned earlier, that really is a big key for him, his ability to get that breaking pitch over. It's doubly effective, really, with his development of the split-fingered fastball because it gives him 2 pitches breaking down in the strike zone, or down out of the strike zone, if you will.
One without the little hump in it. Fastball inside. So it's 1-2 to Franklin Stubbs. 7-1 Mets, top of 7.
Have you heard Chris Berman on ESPN's nickname for Franklin?
Give it to me.
Franklin Ticket Stubbs.
Ooh, I like it. Ooh, nice going.
Chris Berman has some innovative going. Chris, ESPN sports editor.
Coming from Ed Merrill Lynch, I can vouch for that.
Fastball fouled away, so it's still 1-2 to Franklin Stubbs. Most of my nicknames cannot be repeated.
Well, Chris wasn't telecasting when you were playing.
Thank goodness.
Carter looked like he might have got hit by the bat on his hand, his bare hand, after the swing. He's still rubbing it.
Two on, one out. We're in the seventh. First time the Dodgers have had two runners on base since the second inning. The only run that they've scored, a solo homer by Ken Landreau that put them on top in the top of the first. Stubbs lays off that pitch. He may see it again. Eddie, we talked earlier in the ball game, as a matter of fact, when Franklin Stubbs first came up, that some hitters are set up when they go up there. A young hitter, you're not inclined to set up like an older, more experienced hitter, huh?
No, I wouldn't think so. I think, especially with Ronnie Darling out there, I think it's tough for the Dodgers to know his stuff. They've never seen him very often, and Franklin Stubbs has probably only hit off him 3 or 4 times.
The breaking ball gets him. 10 strikeouts, and they're 2 out and 2 on, and the batter Mariano Duncan.
And for the third consecutive at-bat, Franklin Stubbs looks at a called third strike.
By set up, Eddie, I was saying that you are more inclined to throw a hitter like Franklin Stubbs one pitch after the other without moving the ball in and out, because he's not as experienced as the other hitters in adjusting to a particular pitch.
Well, that's definitely true. Or a guy like Madlock, you can't show him the same kind of hurt you.
Mariano Duncan is 1 for 2. He singled to left and struck out. Fastball is low, 1-0. Len Matuzik, the ex-Philly and ex-Toronto Blue Jay, is on deck. He's coming off the DL with that bad shoulder of his. That's a good split finger fastball with 1 ball and no strikes with a 6-run lead. That's unfair.
Well, the one thing working in Ronnie's advantage is he's only pitched against the Dodgers twice in his career before tonight. He's never pitched in L.A., and I think it's just the luck of the draw in the rotation. And that split-finger fastball, if you haven't seen it, it can be deceptive.
Has been tonight. 10 strikeouts for Ron Darling. There it is again, 1-2. We try to explain it from a non-pitcher's viewpoint, Steve, that split finger.
Well, as you've put it so well so often, Tim, it's the illusion of a strike. Bruce Sutter, of course, has made his career with that pitch, and it's just so tough to lay off because it comes up there looking like it's going to be in the strike zone, and when you swing at it, it's not where it was.
Bruce has made a good career and post-career with that pitch. Breaking ball, jams him, hit the short. Santana to first to get him. So Darling pitches out of mild trouble here in the 7th. The Dodgers strand 2 on 2 hits. And after 6.5, 7-1, New York. We'll be back after this word from the good old guys.
And it's California week, as you might have expected here at Shea. Tomorrow night and Thursday night, these same Dodgers will be here at Shea to take on the Mets. And then following the Dodgers, the San Francisco Giants move into Shea for a 3-game weekend series beginning this Friday night at 7:30. And then this Saturday night, that's May 31st, that game gets underway at 7 with Sunday's final game on June 1st. Again, a reminder, starting at 3:05. The 3:05 game start is new, so please make a note of it. And right behind the Giants, Steve Garvey of the San Diego Padres will be here for 3 games, June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. The Mets want to remind you that due to the heavy demand of this Sunday's June 1st Cap Day tickets are still available at Shea's advanced ticket window only. For all other Mets home games, tickets can be purchased at any Ticketron outlet, Shea's advanced ticket window, or for information, you can call 718-507-TIXX. There are plenty of great baseball seats available and plenty of great baseball coming up at Shea So come on out and cheer the Mets on.
Well, Alejandro Phenia is going to be the new pitcher for the Dodgers, just off the DL.
Pena's first appearance after a rehab program for a while in the minor league.
And there's the strike. Matuzik will be the new first baseman, so Lynn will bat in the number 9 hole. And Greg Brock out of there. So Phenia will be batting 6th. So it's 2-0 to Keith Hernandez. And the fastball's down in the dirt. So it's 3-0 to Keith. There you see that little, what is that called, a tipra over the end?
Tilde.
Tilde. T-I-L-D-A. D-E.
I think it's D-E.
The Dodgers might lead the major leagues in
Tilde.
In yes. They have Phenia, Cedeno, and Trevino. Well hit right field. A 3-0 fastball that's going to be out of here. Keith Hernandez. This might be a little payback in a 6-run ball game, allowing Hernandez to hit a 3-0 pitch.
Good point. Tommy Lasorda with what you might call a unhappy expression on his face. Hernandez, the antithesis of that, as Keith hits home run number 3 and drives in his 20th run of the year. And what a way to welcome back Alejandro Phenia to the big league. Before Phenia injured his shoulder, he threw some flat gas as Keith takes the curtain call. And it'll be interesting to see if he has the same kind of velocity. 3-0, a grooved fastball about thigh high, and Keith goes down right field and into the Mets bullpen for his 3rd home run of the year, and he likes it.
Keith now 3 for 4 on the evening. Gary Carter 1 for 2 with 2 RBIs, fouls 1 off, 0-1. That unwritten rule of running late in a game when you have a game sewed up. It's the same thing, putting the runner in motion and hitting a 3-0 pitch. Same type of situation. The Mets may, if you get guys on, you may see Davy Johnson send them, regardless of the score. Change up inside, 1-1 to Carter. A bench-clearing brawl in the 6th, and it was nasty.
And not the first time, as we documented with Ed Lynch in our booth for a while, the Mets and the Dodgers have gone at it in that fashion, as Ed and Mariano Duncan started one last year. And you're right about Davy Johnson. He's not going to back down or necessarily roll over and play dead.
This ball hit well to left, but playable. Franklin Stubbs at the edge of the warning track, and he makes the catch. And the batter, Danny Heap, with 1 out, nobody on. The Mets lead it 8-1. Heap 1 for 3 with a run scored.
And the Mets, who are the best hitting team in the National League at 261 at the start of play today, are going up against an ERA in the National League in the Dodgers, and so far they are pummeling Dodger pitching.
Teams have been doing that when the Dodgers have been on the road. They're 5-12 on the road this year. Not a good start for Los Angeles away from Dodger Stadium. And the fastball is low, 1-1. Doug Sisk and Randy Neiman, the left-hander, warming for the Mets. And it's 2-1. Say, fans, we're in the 7th inning. A great time to reach out and pull back an ice-cold Budweiser. Hey, this Bud's for you. Line drive, base hit right field. He's going to have at least a double. Marshall gets to the ball in time, so Danny Heap has his second hit of the night. And the Mets have a runner at second with one out, and George Foster up, who grand salamied his last time up.
Danny Heap has now hit with 2 base hits in this game in 10 of his 11 starts in the outfield for the Mets this year. And you saw a graphic earlier that our crack crew dug up and put up in the fact that the Mets are 9-1 and on the verge of being 10-1 in Heap's 11 starts.
Grand slam number 13, his 4th as a Met in the 6th inning. George's 5th home run of the year and RBIs number 14 through 18. Or make that through 17. It's not inclusive enough with that comment. 0-1 to Foster.
Incisive, but not inclusive.
Yeah. 0-2 to George.
And that was a pretty good fastball by Phenia.
Dodgers already with a strong pitching staff, and this young man would be a shot in the arm if he came back for the Dodgers. He led the National League in ERA back in 1984. Pitched in only 3 ball games last year. Slider is fouled off, so Foster stays wide. Have you ever seen as many nyas on a ball club? Phenia, Cedeno, and Trevino.
The Pittsburgh Pirates of a few years ago might have challenged them a little bit. They have a Phenia.
Yes.
And I'm trying to think of a couple other Latin players they have.
Guanti, but that's not a...
No.
That doesn't count. Foster is out. Danny Heap moving to third on the play. And Ray Knight is the batter. Ray Knight was the batter after Foster hit the grand slam home run.
And the fans like it.
Tom Niedenfuer hit Ray on the left elbow. And if you read lips, you just saw Tommy Lasorda's comment toward Ray Knight or the fans.
They gave Ray a partial standing ovation.
And he fouls it back. Is that kind of like a stooping ovation?
A squatting ovation. No, obviously what I meant was not everybody stood up. I like that, though. Stooping ovation. Crouching ovation. Bend at the waist.
Fastball low, 1-1. Phenia does not appear to have the velocity that we've seen him with, but of course that's expected. Fastball is low, 2-1 to Ray Knight.
If Phenia is to regain the form he showed in 1984, it's probably going to take the better part of this season for him to do that. Not everybody comes back strong and 100% from that kind of surgery. Although so many pitchers have lately that you begin to think that it's not as serious as it what used to be.
Bruce Perini, for example.
Roger Clemens had a serious.
Well, I guess like everything else, they make improvements in medicine. A brilliant statement.
Well, look at Ed Lynch. You know, 10 years ago, the type of injury that Ed suffered and the type of operation required would have meant there'd be no way that he would come back this season. And now he's looking at being ready to pitch in another week.
Fastball is low tonight, so Ray is on there. The first walk issued by Phenia. He opened the inning with a home run given up on a 3-0 pitch to Keith Hernandez. Danny Heap doubled with one out. Now Ray Knight on first. So the Mets have runners at the corners as you took a look at Enos Cabell. And Rafael Santana, who's 1 for 2. He was hit by a pitch in the 5th inning. But it was after 2 straight strikeouts by Bob Welch, so obviously not as much meant by that as it was by Tom Niedenfuer when he hit Ray Knight. Swing and a miss, 0-1. The Mets with 1 in the 4th, 6 in the 6th, and 1 here in the 7th. They lead 8-1. Grounded foul, so it's 0-2.
The walk that Phenia issued to Ray Knight, the first walk issued by Dodger pitching tonight. And with 8 runs being scored, it might be somewhat of a mild surprise.
All the runs scored have been earned, with the exception of the run scored in the 4th inning. So 7 of the 8 runs have done some damage to the Dodgers' league-leading ERA. 1-2 to Santana. Well, he went too far, and Socha on a nice block throws out Santana. So a strikeout for Phenia. The Mets, however, do get 1 run on 2 hits. They strand 2. And after 7, the Mets have the lead, 8-1. The WOR booth. Hospitality tonight for the Burger King folks. One of our sponsors here for Mets Broadcast. And OTB. Off track. Len Matusik leads it off here in the top of the 8th inning. We understand it was not OTB.
People from the good old guys.
Yeah, the good old guys. That's GOG.
That's right, OTV, GOG. Well, Oldsmobile, OTV, they start with O.
0-1 to Matusik, who batted .222 in a Dodger uniform last year. He was traded by Toronto on July 9th to the Dodgers in the Al Oliver trade after being traded by the Phillies for 3 minor leaguers to the Blue Jays in spring training. Ground ball, nice play, Hernandez, and an easy toss to Darling, 1 away.
You can always catch the fun and games weeknights at 7 with host Dick Clark and special guest stars on the $100,000 pyramid right here on Channel 9.
Steve Sachs, the batter. Steve, 2 for 4. The Mets are up 8-1. And you mentioned fun and games. I'd like to give our good buddy Keith Morris a pop. He has organized once again the 20th sports night for the Human Resources Center up in Albertson, Long Island. And boy, what a dinner it's going to be. Billy Martin, Mickey Vernon, Craig Swan, Don Newcomb, Bobby Richardson, Joe Klecko, Joe Morris, Bob Nystrom, Bob Lanier, and many, many more. That is the 20th sports night this Thursday up in Albertson, New York. And a split finger is a strike, 0-2. And I guess one guy that will be missing, and he will be missed also, Johnny Padres. While we're at it, speedy get well to Johnny, who's watching our game tonight from St. Luke's Hospital. Johnny underwent successful bypass surgery just last Saturday, or I guess it was 10 days ago or so.
Speaking of medical advancements, as we were last
Yeah,
sitting.
that's right. 1-2 to Sachs, 1 out here in the 8th, 8-1 New York. Johnny Padres had the best changeup I have ever seen or hit against. Fastball is low, 2-2.
How'd you do against him? Now remember,
Not real well. Not too many left-handers did well against Johnny, I'll tell you.
You were not alone.
Fastball outside, 3-2. Johnny Padres won the 7th game and the only World Series that the Dodgers ever won against the Yankees. The Brooklyn Dodgers only World Series they ever beat the Yankees. Back in 1955, he won 2-0 in Game 7, and Sachs fouls it back.
I think that one series and the Dodgers' victory in that series did more to make legends out of those boys of summer than perhaps
that's right.
anything else.
Yep.
That really, although they were a fine team and won the National League Championship in other years during that spread, that one series is what made them.
Fly ball to right field, an easy play for Danny Heap, and they're 2 away.
Steve Sachs is going to wish that he could just skip the Mets and hit against the rest of the National League. He is 1 for 16 against New York this year, and he entered the game hitting .329 against the league.
Kenny Landreau, the batter. 2 out, nobody on. Top of the 8th inning. Landreau homered in the first inning, a solo shot off Ron Darling. And the Dodgers took the 1-0 lead. The Mets tied it in the 4th with 1 run and a big 6 in the 6th. And another solo home run by Keith Hernandez in the 7th makes it 8-1 Mets. Ball 1.
What a different game it has turned out to be from the first 5 innings.
There's Rick Aguilera warming for New York.
During those first 5 innings, each starting pitcher, Darling and Welch, had struck out 8 batters, 16 strikeouts in 5 innings total. And it really changed after that. Hasn't changed a lot offensively for the Dodgers.
Darling has struck out 2 since the 5th inning. Run is totaled to 10. There's a strike to Landreau, 3-1. Montreal still tied San Diego, and a reminder that Ralph Kiner will have all the scores and wrap-ups of all the National and American League action after this game. Mets trying to pick up a full game on the Expos. They led the Expos by 4.5 games before this game. Second walk issued by Ron Darling and batter Bill Madlock. Is it Mad Dog or Glad Dog now?
Well, Tommy Lasorda changed his nickname, and Bill went along with it. He was known as Mad Dog for many years, and they started calling him Glad Dog because he was so happy to be traded to the Dodgers and play in L.A.
Ground ball towards short, and Santana shuffles off to Wally Backman. No runs, no hits, no errors, and 1 left here in the 8th. And after 7.5, it's 8-1 New York. Now here's a word from Lincoln Mercury. Michael Vincent stars in a story about high school love in the 1940s rural town. Buster and Billy, Thursday night at 9 on the $1 Million Movie right here on Channel 9. If it's about a 1940s rural town, his name was probably John then instead of Jan. And a guy who's always been Steve Zabriskie.
You got that right. Thank you, partner. Ken Howell and Rick Honeycutt loosening up in the Los Angeles bullpen as Ron Darling leads it off for the Mets in the bottom of the 8th inning. 8-1 New York. Alejandro Phenia with a called strike 1. Darling sacrificed successfully and reached on an error his last time up. He's 0 for 2. Breaking ball misses. 1-1.
Ray Knight, who was hit by the pitch and then charged the mound back in the 6th inning following the pitch inside that hit him on the elbow by Tom Niedenfuer, probably the leading candidate in the Met Life Player of the Month.
Fly ball to center. An easy play for Ken Landreau. 1 out here in the 8th inning. Yes, we will be voting on the Met Life Player of the Month shortly, since it's almost the end of the month. The way the Mets are going, more than one player in contention, but Knight certainly has remained hot. Glenn Dykstra's been pretty hot. He's 2 for 4 tonight with a run scored. Swings late, strike 1.
Bobby Ojeda is certainly in contention. Keith Hernandez.
Wally Backman's had a pretty good
Yes, sir. Well, I'll say.
Dykstra gave up on that ball, but it broke right in there. And it's 0-2. And it's still 0-2. And again, we remind you that Sunday, June 1st, Cap Day here at Shea, general admission seats only remaining, and the time of that game has been moved back an hour and a half from 1:30 to 3. We'll be on the air at 3 with a 3:05 start time here at Shea Sunday. Sharply hit one hopper to Sachs at second, and he gets Dykstra 2 out in the 8th. And here comes Wally Backman. Wally has scored 2 runs and doubled in a run in the 6th inning. He's 1 for 4.
We'd like to one more time refer to a marvelous article that the editor of the San Diego Sports section did, Barry Lorge. He was talking about Tim Flannery. He mentioned in that article, ordinary skill, extraordinary will. And that typifies Wally Backman and Tim Flannery, who comes in next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday when the Padres come to town. Ordinary skill, extraordinary will. I love that line.
You got a glimpse of a guy with better than ordinary skill.
That's
Keith
correct.
Hernandez on deck.
That's correct.
That is a great line. That was a fine article. 1-1 to Wally. Walter has used good old-fashioned hard work to improve his skills and make the most of what God gave him. He has become a much more than adequate second baseman after earlier in his career being just about an adequate second baseman. 2-1. And Davy Johnson has a lot to do with that because Davy has worked with him a great deal since he became the manager, and of course Davy knows a lot about playing second base.
Wally went down after the first 5 weeks of the 1983 season. Davy was the manager at Tidewater, the AAA ball club, worked on Backman's footwork. Backman hit a ton for him, and the next year when Davy was named manager, Backman was the second baseman, and he has not disappointed him.
Two and two. Len Matruzek with the play. And the inning is over. Phenia with a 1-2-3 inning here in the 8th. And we'll go to the 9th here at Shea with the Mets way out in front, 8-1 over the Dodgers after this for U.S. Healthcare.
Second bout, and we mean bout, with the Los Angeles Dodgers tomorrow night at about 7:30. Our hometown boys host the West Coast live from Shea Stadium right here on Channel 9. As you know, as you may not know if you've just tuned in, a big bench-clearing brawl and a serious fight in the 6th inning.
But fortunately, no real harm done, as Mike Marshall takes strike 1 from Ron Darling. Tom Niedenfuer, the pitcher in the melee, appeared to have a black eye or a bruised right eye.
You don't know that you're hurt until the next day.
That's true. Marshall swings and misses for strike 2. Mike got a base hit his last time up to extend his hitting streak to 13 straight games. And he has been on base now in 16 games in a row by either a hit or a walk. See you later. 1-2-3 and goodbye. And Ron Darling has now struck out 11. His career high is 12.
And it's right on the corner. Back on August 29th, 1984, Ron Darling struck out 12 Dodgers.
And that was his only victory against the Dodgers. He's 1-0 coming into tonight. Mike Scioscia, a guy who does not strike out very often, has not struck out tonight, but he is 0 for 3. And he takes a strike. It's 1-1. Scioscia's hit .325 in the last 28 games as the Dodgers have picked up their offense considerably, but as you pointed out, Tim, they're back on the road and things could change. 2-1.
The Dodgers have played, if we want to refer back to that graphic fired up by our Chiron guys down in the truck in the studio, they played 13 more home games than the Mets have. So the Mets not only have a 4.5 game lead, they have the advantage by playing at home, too.
Cesar Cedeno, another tilde on deck.
A little curly cue over the end.
Nya. Nya. Instead of a tilde, we'll call it a nya.
Yeah.
Scioscia rips a base hit down the right field line, about a foot fair. Going for second as Heap digs it out among the stands, and he's in there with a double. The fifth hit off Ron Darling, and it comes with one out here in the ninth inning. Scioscia's sixth double of the year, as Cesar Cedeno will be the pinch hitter for the pitcher Alejandro Pena. So one tilde hits for another.
You can imagine if the group Sha-Na-Na was a Latin oldies but goodies, you'd never get it out.
No,
would you?
I don't even know how I could say it.
Well, I'm not going to try it.
No. Could be trouble looking to happen. Cedeno, as you saw, hitting .235 on the year. As a pinch hitter, he is 3 for 11, but he does have 5 pinch hit RBIs. And he's got a runner in scoring position in Scioscia at second with one out. Strike one. Cesar did some kind of job for the Cardinals at the end of last season. And the Dodgers were hoping for the same from him this year. Darling with that split-fingered fastball again, and it's 0-2. Ronnie would get his first complete game of the year. Not to mention the fact that he would remain undefeated with his 6th victory.
Only 3 other Mets starting pitchers have done that in the history of the franchise. Opened the season with a 6-0 record.
Strike 3. Strikeout number 12 for Darling to match his career high. Darling has struck out more batters now in one game than any other Mets pitcher this year.
And this is another thing that happens when you get your breaking ball over. Hitters have to protect against it, and you sneak the fastball by him. I think Ron and Gary Carter, not only has Darling had his best stuff of the season, getting his breaking ball over, but he's really worked nice patterns by staying out of patterns.
Well put.
Consistently inconsistent.
And the breaking ball over to start Franklin Stubbs.
It's nice to be, if you're a pitcher, to be predictably unpredictable.
And Darling has been just that. And again, you have to go back to that curveball. He's been getting it over since the first pitch. Stubbs has struck out looking all 3 times up. And Darling has gotten him with breaking balls. Fastball inside, and it's 1-1. 2 out, 9th inning. The Mets are leading 8-1 as Darling tries to end it. Were it not for Ken Landreau's first inning home run, Ron would also be working on his first shutout of the year. A shot that Backman picks up on one short, quick hop and throws him out to end the game. Ron Darling goes to 6-0 with a complete game, his first complete game of the year. The loser is Los Angeles starter Bob Welch, whose record now is 3-4. George Foster with a grand slam home run, and the Mets now have won 6 of their last 8 and 26 of their last 34 games. They'll take on the Dodgers again tomorrow and Thursday night here at Shea. Tim and I'll be right back for a wrap-up. Ralph Kiner standing by with an edition of Kiner's Corner.